Biosphere 2 Project Part 2. Praise and criticism. One view of Biosphere 2 was that it was the most exciting scientific project to be undertaken in the United States since President John F. Kennedy launched us toward the moon. 77. Others called it New Age drivel masquerading as science. 78. John Allen and Roy Walford did have mainstream credentials. John Allen held a degree in metallurgical mining engineering from the Colorado School of Mines, and an MBA from the Harvard Business School. 2479. Roy Walford received his doctorate of medicine from the University of Chicago and taught at UCLA as a professor of pathology for 35 years. Mark Nelson obtained his Ph.D. in 1998 under Professor H.T. Odom in ecological engineering, further developing the constructed wetlands used to treat and recycle sewage in Biosphere 2. 80. To coral reef protection along the Yucatan coast where the corals were collected. 81. Linda Lee obtained her Ph.D. with a dissertation on biodiversity and the Biosphere 2 rainforest working with Odom. 82. Abigail Allen, Mark Van Thillo and Sally Silverstone helped start the Biosphere Foundation, where they worked on coral reef and marine conservation and sustainable agricultural systems. 83. Jane Pointer and Tabor McCallum co-founded Paragon Space Development Corporation, which has studied the first mini-closed system and the first full animal life cycle in space and assisted in setting world records in high-altitude descents. 84. Questioning the credentials of the participants. Despite the contribution in the preparation phase of Biosphere 2 of worldwide top-level scientists and among others the Russian Academy of Sciences, Mark Cooper wrote that the group that built, conceived, and directs the Biosphere project is not a group of high-tech researchers on the cutting edge of science, but a troupe of recycled theater performers that evolved out of an authoritarian, and decidedly non-scientific, personality cult. 85. He was referring to the Submerger Ranch in New Mexico, where indeed many of the Biosphereans did practice theater under John Allen's leadership, and began to develop the ideas behind Biosphere 2. 86. They also founded the Institute of Ecotechnics. 87, and began innovative field projects in challenging biomes to advance the healthy integration of human technologies and the environment, where many of the Biospherian candidates gained experience in operating real-time complex projects. 88-89, one of their own scientific consultants was earlier critical. Dr. Gillian Krantz, director of the Royal Botanical Gardens in Kew, designed the rainforest biome inside the Biosphere. Although he later changed his opinion, acknowledging the unique scope of this experiment, and contributed to its success as a consultant. In a 1983 interview, 8 years before the start of the experiment, Krantz said, "I was attracted to the Institute of Ecotechnics because funds for research were being cut and the institute seemed to have a lot of money which it was willing to spend freely. Along with others, I was ill-used. Their interest in science is not genuine. They seem to have some sort of secret agenda, they seem to be guided by some sort of religious or philosophical system." Krantz went on in the 1991 newspaper interview to say they are visionaries, and maybe to fulfill their vision they have become somewhat cult-like. But they are not a cult, per se. I am interested in ecological restoration systems. And I think all sorts of scientific things can come of this experiment, far beyond the space goal. When they came to me with this new project, they seemed so well organized, so inspired, I simply decided to forget the past. You shouldn't hold their past against them. 90. Pointer in her memoir rebuts the critique that because some of the creative team of Biosphere 2 were not credentialed scientists, the results of the endeavor are invalid. Some reporters hurled accusations that we were unscientific. Apparently because many of the SBV managers were not themselves degreed scientists, this called into question the entire validity of the project, even though some of the world's best scientists were working vigorously on the project's design and operation. The critique was not fair. Since leaving Biosphere 2, I have run a small business for 10 years that sent experiments on the shuttle and to the space station, and is designing life support systems for the replacement shuttle and future moon base. I do not have a degree, not even an MBA from Harvard, as John Allen had. I hire scientists and top engineers. Our company's credibility is not called into question because of my credentials, we are judged on the quality of our work. 91. H.T. Odom noted that mavericks and outsiders have often contributed to the development of science. The original management of Biosphere 2 was regarded by many scientists as untrained for lack of scientific degrees, even though they had engaged in a preparatory study program for a decade, interacting with the international community of scientists including the Russians involved with closed systems. The history of science has many examples where people of atypical background open science in new directions, in this case implementing mesocosm organization and ecological engineering with fresh hypotheses. 92. The Biosphere 2 Science Advisory Committee, chaired by Tom Lovejoy of the Smithsonian Institution, in its report of August 1992 reported, the committee is in agreement that the conception and construction of Biosphere 2 were acts of vision and courage. The scale of Biosphere 2 is unique and Biosphere 2 is already providing unexpected scientific results not possible through other means, notably the documented, unexpected decline in atmospheric oxygen levels. Biosphere 2 will make important scientific contributions in the fields of biogeochemical cycling, the ecology of closed ecological systems, and restoration ecology. Columbia University assembled outside scientists to evaluate the potential of the facility after they took over management, and concluded the following: a group of world-class scientists got together and decided the Biosphere 2 facility is an exceptional laboratory for addressing critical questions relative to the future of Earth and its environment. 93. Ongoing research following the initial enclosure has produced positive results for current ecological understanding. Mark Nelson writes, several years of research on Biosphere 2's ocean demonstrated the devastating impacts from elevated atmospheric CO2. Coral reef was studied at 200 parts per million, 350 parts per million, 700 parts per million, and 1,200 parts per million of CO2. Corals grew twice as fast at the lower levels, compared to the 350 parts per million levels in the 1990s Earth atmosphere. At 1,200 parts per million, coral growth declined 90%. Frank Kress, a former secretary for the National Academy of Sciences, described the interaction as the first unequivocal experimental confirmation of the human impact on the planet. 94. Columbia University. In December 1995, the Biosphere 2 owners transferred management to Columbia University of New York City. 95. Columbia ran Biosphere 2 as a research site and campus until 2003. 96. Subsequently, management reverted to the owners. In 1996, Columbia University changed the virtually airtight, materially closed structure designed for closed system research, to a flow-through system, and halted closed system research. They manipulated carbon dioxide levels for global warming research, and injected desired amounts of carbon dioxide, venting as needed. 97. During Columbia's tenure, students from Columbia and other colleges and universities would often spend one semester at the site. 98. Research during Columbia's tenure demonstrated the devastating impacts on coral reefs from elevated atmospheric CO2 and acidification that will result from continued global climate change. 99. Frank Kress, former president of the National Academy of Sciences, described these interactions between atmosphere and ocean, taking advantage of the highly controllable ocean mesocosm of Biosphere 2, as the first unequivocal experimental confirmation of the human impact on the planet. 100. Studies in Biosphere 2's terrestrial biomes showed that a saturation point was reached with elevated CO2 beyond which they are unable to uptake more. The study's authors noted that the striking differences between the Biosphere 2 rainforest and desert biomes in their whole system responses illustrates the importance of large-scale experimental research in the study of complex global change issues. 101. Site sold in January 2005, Decisions Investments Corporation, owner of Biosphere 2, announced that the project's 1,600-acre, 650 hectares, campus was for sale. They preferred a research use to be found for the complex but were not excluding buyers with different intentions, such as big universities, churches, resorts, and spas. 102. In June 2007, the site was sold for $50 million to CBO Ranching and Development. LP 1,500 houses and a resort hotel were planned, but the main structure was still to be available for research and educational use. 103. Acquisition by University of Arizona on June 26, 2007, the University of Arizona announced it would take over research at the Biosphere 2. The announcement ended fears that the structure would be demolished. University officials said private gifts and grants enabled them to cover research and operating costs for 3 years with the possibility of extending funding for 10 years. 104. It was extended for 10 years, and is now engaged in research projects including research into the terrestrial water cycle and how it relates to ecology, atmospheric science, soil geochemistry, and climate change. In June 2011, the university announced that it would assume full ownership of Biosphere 2, effective July 1. 105. Biosphere 2, 2015 CBO Ranching and Development donated the land, Biosphere buildings and several other support and administrative buildings. In 2011, the Philocology Foundation, a non-profit research foundation founded by Ed Bass, pledged $20 million for the ongoing science and operations. 105. In 2017, Ed Bass donated another $30 million to the University of Arizona in support of Biosphere 2, endowing 2 academic positions and setting up the Philocology Biospheric Research Endowment Fund. 106. Science camps are also held on the premises. These have included a week-long space camp for university undergraduates, and overnight camps for school students. 107-108. Biosphere 2, a scientific project aimed at creating a self-sustaining ecosystem, received both praise and criticism. Some viewed it as an exciting project on par with the moon landing, while others criticized it as new age drivel masquerading as science. The team involved in the project had diverse backgrounds, including metallurgical mining engineering, pathology, and ecology. Some critics questioned their credentials, calling them a group of recycled theater performers, while others argued that mavericks and outsiders have often contributed to the development of science. The Biosphere 2 Science Advisory Committee praised the project's vision and courage and noted its unique scale and unexpected scientific results. Despite criticism, the project has made important scientific contributions in the fields of biogeochemical cycling, closed ecological systems, and restoration ecology. In popular culture Biodome, a 1996 comedy film based on Biosphere 2 114, Spaceship Earth, a 2020 documentary film on Biosphere 2 115, the Cheers episode The Girl in the Plastic Bubble sees the character Lilith Crane leave to live in an underground eco-pod, an obvious parody of the Biosphere 2 project. 116. In 2016, fiction author T.C. Boyle wrote the novel The Terranauts about the second mission and the interpersonal conflicts. Citation needed. See also Bios 3, a closed ecosystem at the Institute of Biophysics in Krasnoyarsk, Siberia, Russia. Melissa, a closed ecosystem run by the European Space Agency Eden Project Institute of Ecotechnics IBTS Greenhouse Mars Analog Habitats Flashline Mars Arctic Research Station, Mars Desert Research Station, MDRS, Mars 500. Ground-based experiment simulating a crewed flight to Mars high seas. a NASA-funded study of long-term space exploration at the University of Hawaii Linares, a Moon and Mars analog research station in Poland. Like, comment, subscribe, to follow along for the trip.